Hi, I'm in the honey house and today I'm preparing cut comb. So cut comb is, usually comes in little boxes like this, and it's a premium product and it's quite tricky to do if you're a beekeeper, but it's probably one of the most delicious ways of eating honey. And so I always try and get some cut comb for my customers because it's always very popular. So like anything in beekeeping, it's all in the planning. So I start thinking about cut comb at the beginning of the year in the winter, sort of January time, when I'm planning what my goals are for the beekeeping year. So the reason I have to do this is because I always have fresh frames with foundation in them for making cut comb, and it's important that you get the right type of foundation, so it's the thin stuff and it's not wired. So it's quite delicate. You can buy it from places like Thorns. I'm sure there's lots of other places too. So what you need to do is to set up your supers that you want to use for cut comb with these frames with the very thin unwired foundation in it. And when you're doing this, I always use the 10 frame castellations, because I find, if you have a look at my box here, let me just open it so you can see, if you do it, the bees will draw it out to just the right thickness to fit in the box if you use the 10 frame castellations. And I also never fill an entire super with cut comb frames because the bees don't tend to draw them all out evenly. So what I usually do is put the cut comb frames in the middle of the super, and then I'll have normal wired frames towards the edges. And sometimes I'll swap them over as the bees are drawing it out, so that you get that really nice even drawing. So the other thing to think about is when to actually put those supers onto the hives, because it's no good if there's not a really good nectar flow going on, because the goal is to get a frame where nearly every cell is capped like this, and you want a nice even capping as well, preferably, you know, with a nice white capping. It's just so beautiful. I love a frame like this. The other thing I do, I've just noticed on this frame, can you see? I mark the tops of my frames with which ones are cut comb. So I just put a CC. I mean, you can put whatever you want on, but I know in my colonies, if I see CC when it comes to extracting, that's a cut comb frame, because it's really difficult to know for sure whether there's wires in there or not unless you've marked them. So I've learnt my lesson, because I've earmarked beautiful frames for cut comb in the past, and then I've come to it with a knife and cut it open, and there's wires in there, so you can't sell cut comb with wires in it. So that's absolutely no use at all. So what was I saying? Yes, so you need to make sure that you're putting the supers on when there's a very strong nectar flow, so you get that nice even drawing out and filling and capping. And you just have to be careful. Some years it's impossible, you never get it, the weather's not right, or the colony's not strong enough, or you know, whatever. So I only ever choose my best colonies to make cut comb, because they will draw comb very quickly and they'll fill it very fast. Sometimes you'll get a nectar flow that goes for a bit and then everything stops for a while, and then you get another flow later on. So if they've drawn the comb in that first flow and then they're not really doing much with it, I'll take it off and hold it for a few weeks and then put it back on when there's a strong flow, because you really want that whole frame to look amazing all in one go. So that's what I do. I'm going to show you now how I cut up a frame and put them into boxes. So I'm now using these boxes, which I also bought from Thorns. I'm not sponsored by them, but I really like these new boxes that they've started stocking. I've seen them for years around the place and haven't been able to get hold of them, but now you can, and they're really nice and robust, and I think I post out a lot of my orders, so I think these will be okay in the post as well. I haven't tried it, but I think they'll be fine because they're nice and strong, and if you pack it properly it should be okay. So yeah, I've got these boxes. So the first thing I do when I've got a new box or container is make a template that fits exactly into the box like that. So that's the template I'm going to use to cut the honeycomb with. So I know that that fits in, so there's no messing about when it's time to put them into the boxes, because the last thing you want is like having to trim it down afterwards and all the rest of it. So I know out of a frame like this, there's different ways you can choose to cut it, but I know that you can get 5 of these out of one frame, and you'll trim off the bottom and one of the sides a little bit. So I always have a look at it to see where the cells have most filled. Can you see here? Those aren't so great. So I'll cut that corner off. I'll show you as I do it. Right, so I'm going to cut this out now. So the first thing I do is cut all around the edges of the frame to get the whole block out in one go. And the knife I use is just a simple kitchen knife. It's nothing fancy or special. I've tried using those cut comb punches that you can buy, but oh my goodness, the mess. I find this a much easier way of doing it. So first of all, I'll just cut along top here. You need to be a little bit careful that you don't cut into the wood, because the last thing you want is splinters in your cut comb. That would be not a very tasty treat. So you can see I'm cutting all the way around the edge like this. It's slightly cooler today, and I think that's a bit better because it makes the wax slightly more brittle rather than being bendy. Just get all the way to the edges like that, and then you can see the frame is just lifting off nicely. So I've got this beautiful slab now, and here's my template. So I'm going to start at this end because this end is all really nicely capped. So I literally just hold it on like that with one hand, and I cut around it with the other hand, and that's it. And then you can just slide it away slightly and cut along the bottom. There we go. There. There we are. And then we continue along like this for all of the others. And as I said, you can get 5 out. Obviously, if the bees haven't capped the entire thing nicely, like this one is, you can cut out fewer. You want most of it to be capped because it is a premium product and you want it to be as pristine as possible. Sometimes in the shops you see cut comb that looks really raggedy. It's obviously old comb that's been kicking around, and then the beekeepers put it on the hive and they've filled it up, but they haven't drawn it evenly and half the cells aren't filled and it just looks really poor. I like mine to be as good as you can possibly get, because, you know, this is real decadence in my book. I think this is the height of deliciousness. There we go. So we've got one more here, and this was the corner. I'm just going to move it so you can see a bit better. This was the corner here that wasn't quite so filled. So when I cut it, I'm going to trim off that corner so the customer will get a proper weight of honey. There we are. There we are, so that's all sticky. The other thing that I really recommend is that you have some water right next to you that you can wash your hands in very quickly. And the next job is to transfer it into the boxes, and you can just very simply lift it up and pop it in. And because we've used the template, it fits perfectly. Isn't that beautiful? Now at this point, I will take these and pop them into my freezer for 48 hours, just in case there's any wax moth eggs in there that could hatch out into larvae and start eating this, because how disgusting would it be if there was a little larvae running around in here? Ugh, nobody's going to like that. So yeah, 48 hours in the freezer. And then these boxes come with a tape that goes around the edge, so that then they should be fully sealed up, and obviously you have to label them according to the law with all the statutory information. But anyway, there you are. I hope you've enjoyed this. That's how I make cut comb.